And my guest today is Farzam Ehsani. Farzam is the CEO and co-founder, I think, of VALR, a very interesting crypto exchange headquartered, I believe, in Johannesburg, South Africa. Fascinating. Welcome to the show, Farzam.
Thank you so much, Andy. Great to be here.
Great to have you here, my man. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It would be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear a little bit of your personal and professional backstory. What has led you to founding a crypto exchange in South Africa?
Sure. So Farzam Ehsani, as you mentioned, and you are indeed correct, CEO and co-founder of VALR, VALR.com. Grew up in Kenya and originally from Iran, Iranian origin, but family ended up in Kenya due to the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran, which is my religion. So grew up in Africa, have a deep love for Africa, studied economics in the United States, started work in consulting at Deloitte Consulting in San Francisco, then moved over to McKinsey in Johannesburg, and then ultimately found myself in the belly of the investment banking beast, or the financial industry beast, as we like to, or I like to call it, at Rand Merchant Bank, just really trying to understand finance and how to make it better. And I decided to get into finance in the first place because I felt, this was in 2011 now, just because it's an industry that affects every single human being, and very few people understand it at all. I don't think any of us fully understand it, but very few people understand the basics. And I thought, what better way to kind of serve humanity, try to make the world a little bit of a better place, than to understand the financial system and improve it. And while I was at the bank, I heard about Bitcoin and crypto. Initially thought it was a scam, learned more about it through some guidance of some dear friends who were a bit ahead of the curve than I was. And then I became the blockchain lead at the bank, largest bank in Africa, first Rand Merchant Bank. And long story short, we built some stuff for them, which was very exciting, but there wasn't much appetite at the time. This was now 2017, 2018, to go live with these products. And so myself and my co-founders left and started VALR in 2018, and we're now the largest crypto exchange in Africa and growing globally and hoping to take on the big giants that are the global crypto exchanges.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Give us a sense then of who VALR is for. Like, I guess, all the kind of, global crypto exchanges have, slightly different offerings, slightly different niches. But of course, at the same time, everyone wants to get the largest client base possible. But there's always, different client sectors or different buckets of
Absolutely.
target audiences, I guess. So just give us a sense of those different segments that apply to you.
So one of our taglines is for pro traders, for everyone. And what that means is that we have a fantastic API, application programming interface, where we welcome traders from across the globe that are algorithmic traders, high frequency traders, and those that are very sophisticated. So on the one hand, we have over 1,000 institutional clients that are trading on the platform, but we have well over 600,000 retail clients now as well. And we really try to have a venue that you can come and have a very simple interface to buy and sell and stake your cryptocurrencies. So what's really important for a healthy crypto exchange is to have kind of a diversity of different players that are coming onto the platform. So we try to position ourselves as a very sophisticated platform, but that's accessible to the retail trader as well. A few stats for you. We have probably about 75 to 80% of our client base is currently in South Africa, the remainder across the world, growing across the world. And we're actually launching like the largest trading competition of its kind tomorrow, actually. So it's good timing, where we'll be giving out up to $60 million over the course of the next year. So up to 5 million USDT per month on our futures trading pairs, on the perpetual futures trading pairs. So we're very excited about that. And we'll see what happens. It's very difficult to get into the the larger space of global trading on perpetuals. But the incentive that we're giving, which is, as I said, the largest of its kind, is really to incentivize traders to come from the likes of Binance and Bybit and Coinbase and other places to VALR.
Yeah, well said. And look, I was actually having a look at this earlier today myself. You call it the VALR Grand Slam.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
you know, since obviously I had it in my notes, but since you brought it up, we might as well cover the Grand Slam now. So as you've articulated, yeah, if I'm looking at it now on the website, there's a countdown. It goes live in three hours, just under 4 hours as we record. But by the time this is published, it will be live. But I will publish this within a couple of days, I imagine, Farzam. So, you know, the clock is ticking, but it's open. But yeah, just talk us through. Enough about me. Bring it back to you. Just talk us through what the VALR Grand Slam is, how people can get involved, and yeah, there's some pretty juicy prize money up for offer.
Yeah, so maybe to contextualize it, at VALR, we're a spot exchange, we have spot margin, and we have perpetual futures. There's also other things like VALR Pay and staking, but from a trading perspective, we have those three core products: spot margin, and futures, or perpetual futures. We're the largest globally the largest Rand trading, like Bitcoin Rand trading platform across the world. So that's for basically in South Africa. And the margin trading that goes with the spot margin has also taken off very well. As we launch perpetual futures, the idea is that one thing that's worked very well for us in the past is shared value. So as we obtain revenue from trading, we give a whole bunch of that revenue back to our customers. We did this when we started in 2018 by having negative maker fees. We were the first spot trading platform, I believe, to launch negative spot maker trading fees, which means that if you were a maker on the platform, you'd get paid to place orders and provide liquidity on the platform. And over here, what we're saying is basically we're ring fencing our perpetual futures product, and we're saying all the revenue effectively that we generate from the trading on this platform, we're going to create a contest, and all that revenue we're going to push back into the pockets of our users through a competition. And so the prize pool, as I mentioned, is up to 20 or up to $5 million US, and it's tiered according to the volume that's traded on the platform. But effectively, the story here is just one of shared value so that we can effectively help bootstrap the liquidity on the platform. This is one of the biggest and hardest things for any exchange, is that when you launch a new pair, a new product, to get buyers and sellers to come at the same time to create a healthy, vibrant, dynamic market. And that's what we hope to achieve with this incentive pool.
And since we're talking about it, just for people that have just heard this and maybe they are interested, they want to just go and sign up. Do they need to sign up? What is involved? Where should they go? Just yeah.
Great question. So valr.com, that's VALR.com, that's the website. You will have to sign up. You'll have to KYC yourself. You'll have to register yourself for futures trading. We, as you probably know by now, there isn't really any centralized exchange that you can kind of go on and trade without KYCing yourself or actually registering who you are. There are a lot of regulations now. We're actually, just in the last couple of weeks, we just got licensed in South Africa. We were one of the first batch of crypto asset service providers that were licensed by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority in South Africa. We're also approved by the Ministry of Finance in Poland to offer crypto asset services, and you've got initial approval in Dubai and looking at other jurisdictions as well. But I say that all to say that you customers will have to sign up, we'll just the usual KYC or know your customer process. But once you're on, that's pretty much it. You got to go onto the futures platform, start trading, and stand a chance to win based on your trading volume.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thank you for that. Farzam, look, South Africa, right? I'd be curious just to get some insight into, yeah, I guess what the kind of, every country is a little bit different, but every country is still at the early stages, I suppose, of what we hope will eventually be a much more mainstream adoption of crypto assets, right? And for most countries, it starts with a little bit of speculative crypto trading. That's just how it works. But I'm sure there are the nuances within South Africa as compared to the rest of the world. So obviously, I know that you're hoping to, and you are opening up your exchange for, all other parts of the world as well. And we'll come back to that. I know Poland just got approved, but yeah, let's start with South Africa. What are some of the characteristics of the crypto market in South Africa?
Yeah, I would say South Africa is the most sophisticated trading environment on the African continent. We have a lot of sophisticated traders, as I mentioned earlier, that are using our application programming interface. Um, One of the key standout features I think about South Africa, if you or your listeners are familiar with the kimchi premium in Korea, there are some capital controls, and as a result, the price of Bitcoin trades a little bit higher in Korea, or did trade higher in Korea than the rest of the world, and there's a big arbitrage opportunity. In South Africa, there are what are called exchange controls, and those are also capital controls. And so the price of Bitcoin versus Rand trades at a little bit of a premium. Depending on the day, maybe 1 to 2% ish. Sometimes it fluctuates. Sometimes it's negative. And so very rarely it's negative, but it does happen. And so we have a lot of traders that are arbitraging that differential. And for people that are kind of textbook economists, they'll say, no, that doesn't make any sense because arbitrage gets arbitrage, like any arbitrage opportunities get arbitrage down to zero. And while that's true, that's not true of structural arbitrage. And what I mean by structural arbitrage is that right now the only way really for individuals to get their money out of South Africa is through an allowance, which is does about $50,000 a year. And if you go through a few more checks, you can get up to $500,000 a year, where people then will take that money out of South Africa, buy Bitcoin on an exchange that's a little bit cheaper, send the Bitcoin to VALR, sell it for a little bit of a premium, and then they make money that way. But then that's capped. They can't keep doing that because there are regulations of how much they can do. And so because it's structural and there's a lot of demand for Bitcoin, there's a price increase within the market. So we have quite a lot of arbitrageurs. We have a lot of speculators, as you mentioned. We have a lot of people that have very sophisticated trading strategies about the time of the week, or whether the arbitrage itself gets bigger or smaller, and they'll trade that arbitrage gap itself. And then you have your moms and pops and people that are just wanting to have a little bit and to hodl. So there's a whole wide spectrum of users on the platform.
And did you say that about 60% of your customers are based in South Africa? Is that right?
It's about 75 to 80% now.
75, yeah. And so ultimately the goal is to start reducing that as you enter new markets?
That's correct. That's correct. So the aspiration is to get a much more global customer base, which we already have, but to expand it and to deepen our presence internationally.
And so how do we do that? So I saw that I think it was just announced, well, days ago or very recently, you've secured a license in Poland, but you're able to trade in Europe. Is that right?
Yeah, so actually that news isn't that new. So we have an approval to offer crypto asset services in Poland, or into the European Union, from the Polish Ministry of Finance. So we have a VALR EU entity that is there, that allows us to serve the European Union. Well, I think the article that you're referring to that kind of made it seem that news was new news was also referring to our license in South Africa, and that's more of recent news. And then we're also, as I mentioned earlier, we've got initial approval from the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority in Dubai, and we're also in progress with the Mauritian authorities and regulators to get licensed in Mauritius. But a lot of these things take a lot of time. We're in many of these licenses. We've been in kind of progress for well over a year for many of them. So, and also during that time, it's very interesting that the regulations themselves change while you're in process. So as the regulators start learning more, they'll introduce more regulations that are required for us to comply with. So it's still a very young industry, and we expect a lot of change to be occurring in the regulatory space.
Yeah, very well said. Okay. I note that you got some equity funding, so be interested to learn when. But from the likes of you got Coinbase Ventures, Pantera Capital, two obviously Coinbase Ventures, very big name. Pantera Capital, one of the very early Bitcoin
That's right.
funds, I guess, Bitcoin investors. So, if you're being looked at and supported by the likes of Coinbase Ventures and Pantera Capital, you got some heavyweights behind you, Farzam.
Yeah, we're very blessed to have a great investor base behind us. We also have Avon Ventures, which is the investing arm of Fidelity, which is one of the largest asset managers in the world. We have a couple of other exchanges. We have some of the large African investors as well. So we raised about $50 million in 2022. That was part of our Series B round of funding. We raised a smaller round a couple of years earlier in 2020. That was $3.4 million, and then a small $1.5 million seed in 2018. We're very blessed in the sense that we didn't have to raise because of a necessity to raise. We were profitable, but we decided to raise in 2022. The markets were buoyant. We thought we could raise some capital, use that capital for expansion. Very soon after we raised, the markets turned, and so we didn't start deploying all of that capital, and we actually held on to that capital. So we've got a very well-funded balance sheet at the moment, and we've been waiting kind of for the markets to turn, which they have over the last few months. And so back to your question about how we're going to do it, we're actually spending quite a bit of money now on marketing to let the world know about who we are, what we do, what our products are. We really rate our own product. Obviously, we think it's world-class and will really compete against the large players globally. So there's a lot happening. It's very, very busy at the moment, but we have to stay humble, keep building. You never know what the future holds. And so we do our very best, and we'll see what the future brings.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look. On that note, love to get your perspectives on what you see happening in the markets. So obviously, you kind of said that. I guess the markets have had had a good Q1 this year, I would say. A little bit more uncertain in Q2 at the moment. And in fact, look, as we're talking, I don't know if you noticed, but just had a 5% drop in Bitcoin overnight, really, now down to 59,500. Of course, altcoins have dropped even further. So I guess there's uncertainty in the market. With people want it to be a bull market, and it is typical for crypto to experience these dips, quite significant dips, even in a bull market. But it is an uncertain time, nonetheless, at the moment, Farzam.
So it's very uncertain. I'm glad you brought this up because it's a passion of mine to think about kind of where this fits into the global kind of asset portfolio allocation space.
Mm.
We're dealing with an asset class that's 15 years old, right? It's a teenager. It's very young. Nonetheless, it's now well over $1 trillion US in market cap, right? We're talking about Bitcoin specifically, and altogether just shy of $2.5 trillion as a crypto asset class. And when we think about gold right now is at about, the latest numbers I saw is about $17 trillion. And gold itself, yes, it has some properties, some, electrical and industrial properties. But primarily its value is derived from humanity's view of it as a store of value, right? Central banks have a lot of it on their balance sheets. Individuals historically have held it as money or bought coins, gold bars, bullion, etc. So the difference between gold and Bitcoin, obviously, is that one is digital, can be transferred around the world within minutes, and can be stored at very little cost compared to gold, right? And I think it's very difficult to look at Bitcoin in isolation. I think it's really important to have to look at it compared to the traditional financial system, compared to the US dollar, right? And that's one thing that people forget, is that you can never speak about value, financial value, without referencing some other asset. So obviously, when we talk about Bitcoin, we're talking about Bitcoin in terms of US dollars, and it's now just, to your point, it's just dipped just below 60,000 US dollars. But I mean, 60,000 US dollars compared to where it was a couple of years ago is still a tremendous growth, right? I mean, it was down at $16,000 not too long ago. And I think as we start to see inflation pressures continue, as we start to see central banks continue to be challenged with a whole host of challenges, not just in the United States, but abroad. South Africa is no different. We're seeing the troubles with the yen right now as well. I think we'll start to see people look at the hardness of what Bitcoin is and allocate, even if it's a little bit, to their portfolios. We've already seen that, obviously, with the ETFs and the institutional players come in to offer that to their customer bases. But I think we are not even at the beginning of what this asset class has to offer humanity. And the last thing I'll say here is more of a philosophical point, which is, if anybody's following the world news around the world, whether it's all the political conflict or it's, the wars that we have, or it's things that are happening on the US campuses right now, one thing I think that is quite clear is that this aspect of governance of the human race is something that is being severely challenged right now. And most countries of the world, when they have an election, half the population is upset at the outcome, right? Because we have generally a bi-party kind of system. And I think that in a world where trust in those governing institutions is becoming less and less, there is going to be a real need to have sovereignty over your financial assets. That simply doesn't exist in the traditional financial system. It was last week, I think, I got locked out of my own bank account. I couldn't transact at all. And when I contacted the bank to say what's going on, they said, "Oh, we are waiting for your proof of address." I said, "Okay, well, just ask for it. I'll give you the proof of address." But you can't lock someone in their bank account for 48 hours and then tell them that you need their proof of address. So it was subsequently, I was let in, but it's a very uncomfortable situation when you have no control. So I think that aspect, as the world goes into deeper issues with trust and of trusted institutions, we'll start to see this asset class come to the fore in a much stronger way.
Yes, very, very well said. Farzam, I guess it just means you need to have that long-term outlook. It's a multi-decade transition in the way that humanity thinks about everything from money to governance systems and all of that stuff. So along the way, expect volatility. I think that's a nice place to start to finish off this part of the podcast. Farzam, just before we do that, again, for anyone who's interested at looking at VALR, again, just please tell people where they should go, what they should do, and are there any restrictions on who can or cannot sign up at VALR?
Great question. So it's VALR.com, VALR.com. We unfortunately don't accept US customers and some of the OFAC sanctioned countries. So wherever there are big sanctions around the world, we unfortunately can't serve those people. You can follow me at Farzam Ehsani on X or Twitter. Still difficult to say X these days. But VALR.com also is our social media handle for the most part, on X, on Instagram, and other places. But pretty much we accept customers from all over the world, except for most of the sanctioned countries in the United States, because the regulatory environment in the United States is still a very difficult one. I think a lot more clarity is required before we enter this market, the United States.
Yep, absolutely. Very well said. All right. Well, VALR.com. Links are in the show notes, listeners. But I think what we'll do is we'll go to a very quick break, and then it's time to do the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 second. All right. Hey, simple as that. We are back. And I'm with Farzam Ehsani. He is the co-founder and CEO at VALR. Great looking crypto exchange, headquartered in Johannesburg, but taking on the world. Farzam, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Just going to run some questions at you. Just want quick, snappy answers, hot take style, if you like.
All
Question
right.
one. Question one for you. Where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I would say probably closer to the Bitcoin maxi. I wouldn't say I'm a Bitcoin maxi, but I don't believe in the world is going to be full of tons of coins.
Yeah. All right. What would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
I think the future money of the world, whatever crypto asset will be, will indeed be based on cryptography. So the next world reserve asset or world reserve currency will be a crypto.
I like it. I like it. Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, look, whatever you like here, VALR, Bitcoin, crypto, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
I think the industry overall, and I hope VALR is part of that, is going to be playing a huge role in the global financial system, much more than kind of a pet project or a pet, ETF thing, but it'll actually be part of the core financial system sooner than we know it.
I love it. All right. Sci-fi author William Gibson famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Most people aren't aware of it. Just the fact that you can send value across borders instantaneously and at close to zero cost, whereas people are still using banks to send value and waiting days for it to land.
Yeah, I like it. Couldn't agree more. And brings us finally to our final question, which is what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Goodness. The thing that comes to mind is probably the movie Inception about dreams and
Mm,
kind of the interplay between reality and the dream world.
yeah, a Christopher Nolan classic with the spinning top at the end. Yeah.
That's
Um,
exactly correct.
Yeah, Inception, layers upon layers upon layers.
That's
Great,
right.
great selection. All right. Hey, look, thank you, Farzam. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Nothing else to say except, again, just tell people where they can find you on Twitter, wherever else you like to hang out online. And again, how people can come and look at VALR and what you guys are offering.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So it's Farzam Ehsani, Farzam Ehsani. So that's my handle on Twitter or X. You can find VALR, VALR.com, VALRDOTCOM. That's our handles, or just go to VALR.com. That's our website and sign up. We'd love to serve you.
All right. Thank you so much. All the best and bye for now.
Thank you so much, Andy. Cheers. Bye bye.
All right, there you go. We reached the end of another show. VALR looks cool, actually. Yeah, cool. All right, yeah, we reached the end of another show. I'm trying to duck and weave from the sun. Yeah, early morning. Whew. Right. All good. Better end it. Thank you, team, for listening. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. Bye for now.